Hey, thanks for checking out Triple Play again, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we want to just give a shout out to Brookes Bible College. We thank you, Brookes Bible College, for sponsoring us, partnering with us, and if you are somebody considering a biblical degree or biblical counseling degree, make sure you check them out. They're in St. Louis, very cost affordable, and if you're, like the average pastors a church between 75 and 100 people, and if you've got $100,000 of college debt, you're not going to be pastoring that church very long. So unless they're very wealthy. So that being said, Brookes Bible College, their goal is to equip you, get you out there. They're accredited, but to do so on a budget and not cripple your ability to do ministry. Hopefully you'll come out of college with little to no debt at all with them, and that's the plan. That said, today we have a great guest you're going to enjoy. We have Julius Adewunmi, and I've known Julius for quite some time. How long have we known each other, Julius? Do you know? I was trying to think about that last night. It's been almost 15 years, I think.
Yes, it has to be.
Yeah.
2010, 11, or 9?
It's been a while. Anyways, we've known each other for a while. Sure. And one of the things I've watched to do is really grow in this business coaching, lifestyle coaching, and not only that, but then see the success of those who have been behind you. We've got a current mayor in St. Louis who is somebody who I know you personally worked with at one point, and there's been others. You've worked with several different corporations, and on the other hand, I also know you got a fantastic story about how you even came to St. Louis. So, and I know there's things in there that we've talked about, and I've caught little bits and pieces, but I love to hear kind of connect all the dots and put them together. So I'm going to start at the beginning,
okay,
and then we'll work towards what you're doing now on all that kind of stuff. So give us a little bit about yourself, where you came from. Okay, I would ask the St. Louis question, where you went to school, but I know that that's not here in St. Louis, so I'm going to let you answer your story, kind of give it a little bit of how you got here in St. Louis and your journey from where you grew up to here. So
fantastic. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Josh, for having me. It's a beautiful, Thursday afternoon?
It is.
We're here in St. Louis. We're blessed to be here. I wish I was out playing golf, but, we have a very great time to sit down with you here and have this conversation. So thanks a lot for having me. Well, let me just start off by saying that I'm originally from Nigeria, which most people that know me know that because that's one of my preempt every time I talk or I speak. But I grew up in Nigeria. I left home about the age of 14, and I went to high school in England. So I was in high school in Kent, England, and I was there for about 5 years. And in 2019, yes, was it 2000? No. When I was 19 years old, in 1984, is that 84? I came to St. Louis. Now, the story goes like this. We're looking for a good Catholic university in the United States. So I had the big book of Catholic universities. I looked through it, and I looked at the cities that I was interested in. Well, the main city I was interested in was New York, because anybody from any other country, what other place are you interested in, if not the Big Apple? So I found Fordham University. And so I picked Fordham, I applied, and I got accepted. About 3 weeks before I departed for New York, I went home on a Christmas vacation, and I was going to be accepted for the spring semester at Fordham University in New York. I went home. I was home for Christmas for about 4 weeks, and I want to say my very first week there, we went to Mass on Sunday, and my father said, "Hey, the priest would like to talk to you. Father Tom would like to talk to you. He found out that you're going to the U.S. to go to school." And he graduated from a university in the U.S., and so he wants to speak with you. So I said, "Oh, sure." So I went to go speak with Father Tom. "Hi, Father. How are you? Everything good?" He said, Yeah. He says, "Congratulations. I understand you're going to the U.S. I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be going to the Big Apple." He goes, "Yeah, it's okay. You might want to check out St. Louis University." And I said, "Where is that?" And he goes, "It's in St. Louis in Missouri." I said, "Where is that?" He said, "It's in the Midwest. It's a nice, conservative town and city, and I think you'd enjoy it. Of course, I let it go into one ear and came out the other, and I said, thank you very much, and it's good seeing you. And he said, good luck, the best of luck. And I said, thank you. And I left, went home. And a few days later, my dad said, by the way, did you apply to St. Louis University? And I said, nah. He said, I think you should. So I did. I applied. I got accepted. And the story goes like this. I packed my bags for the Big Apple, and he bought the ticket to St. Louis.
Really?
So that's how I ended up here.
Were you able to play soccer both? Because I know you eventually played soccer.
Good question. And it's been a kind of a little thorn. But I did. I picked St. Louis partly because I got excited because I found out soccer was big in St. Louis. And obviously I was playing during was it the fall semester? I didn't go to school because I was waiting for the spring semester's acceptance. So I wasn't in school from September to December. And I stumbled upon like a second or third division soccer team that I was playing soccer with there in England. So I ended up playing professional soccer for like 3 months before coming here. But I was really excited because I thought, man, I'm coming to St. Louis. I'm going to be able to play soccer in St. Louis. I was really excited. But I got to St. Louis U and tried out, and they said, no one's really playing soccer from any country on the team. That the coach at the time, Joey Clark, was very partial to its playing people from St. Louis because he wanted to develop St. Louis soccer, which I see his point, but it didn't stop St. Louis University from being pretty good back then. They were still pretty good, but I didn't get an opportunity to play. So he put together a JV team, which we played 2 or 3 games, and then everything just kind of fizzled. So to that extent, I was a little disappointed, but still, I just went ahead and played intramural soccer and joined some leagues around town. And I think one of my highlights, I played an indoor game. Where was it? A Concord Soccer Club. And I believe it was Slobo, the old Steamers goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to play against him. So it was fun. It was fun. I think I actually scored against him. So I was
on a high. That's something to be on a high about. And nothing wrong with that back in the day.
Absolutely. It was fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what did you wind up graduating with?
So I ended up with a business degree with a major in finance.
Okay.
I actually started a master's program there at St. Louis U. Then I transferred to Fontbonne because they had a Saturday program. However, unfortunately, I didn't finish. I was 6 hours away from my master's, and I decided, it just wasn't worth it. I just got so busy, and I've since then looked into going back, obviously, to wrapping it up, but I'm a lot more than 6 hours away from it now.
So I know you got married. Was that where you met your wife during that time period, or was it actually after college?
After college.
Okay.
Yeah, I met my wife actually much after college. I was working at Pencorp Financial, and a young lady invited me to play volleyball, co-ed volleyball. And I went out to Creve Coeur Park, Creve Coeur Lake. They had an outdoor volleyball league, and that's where I met my wife. And it was it was an interesting night.
There you go. Hey, I showed up for a college, or I guess after college, a singles group flag football game on a Sunday afternoon, and first saw my wife. Yep. And then we developed that through I had a friend invite her to our small group Rams. The Rams are going towards the playoffs, so we were getting together and watching all the playoff games together. So
really,
yep, going to win the World Series.
The
Super Bowl. I said World Series, Super Bowl. So,
very similar story, because her friends talked me into going out after the game that she wasn't playing. And I didn't want to go. I was sweaty. I was in sweats. And I said, no, I don't think it'd be good. It wouldn't be a good impression. They said, everybody's kind of smelly and stinky. Don't worry about it. And I said, nah, I'm not going. I was driving home, and I happened to go by the place where they were all hanging out, which was the Brew House in Maryland Heights. And I thought about it, and I said, I'll just pop in for a few minutes. And the rest was history.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So how did that lead you to where you are today in doing this life and business coaching? Because when did that kind of start?
Well, let me premise this by saying,
Yeah.
so I grew up in a household where my father is a businessman. He had his own company, a very successful company. And my mother at the time was also a VP of human resources for a major corporation in Nigeria. So if you can imagine this powerhouse of a man and this powerhouse of a woman with people, okay, in the same household. That's what I grew up with. That was my upbringing. A faith-filled house, but two powerhouses. So I
And when
always,
you said faith-filled, I mean, were they? I take it they were Catholic because you were talking about that.
Absolutely.
And the importance is where you were in Nigeria, heavily Catholic. I was curious about that because you get different sections. We had a guy from Kenya in here, and he was like, "This area is heavily Muslim, and this area is very agnostic, and in this area is very Catholic." And so,
I would say Lagos, Nigeria, where I grew up, is very Christian,
okay,
but a large population of that is mostly Catholic and Anglican,
okay,
which is what we call Episcopalian here. So, yeah.
very interesting. Yeah. Is that still remaining today, do you say?
In Lagos, yes, it's still remaining that way right now. But there is a lot, partly because of the new big mega churches. You find that both the Catholic and the Anglican is being kind of watered down because a lot of those churchgoers are going to those what we call back home the born again churches. So you find that there's some kind of spreading out. So, but it's still primarily a very Christian. I think Nigeria is supposed to be like the number one church-going country in the world on a Sunday, I think, according to some New York Times or something a while back.
No. I was just curious of how they work, especially when I'm we just had the guy earlier this year from Kenya, and obviously different countries, part of the same continent, but it's always interesting because he was talking about like his country is almost like three countries in some ways. Yeah, because there's a heavy Muslim area. There's this area where it's basically villages that are agnostic. They still believe in the old, trees and rocks being, kind of gods, and every village has its own set of whatever, and they're a little more primitive. And then there's the areas that are kind of by the sea there, the ocean, I guess, that they're much more Catholic and Christian,
Right.
And so we were discussing that. So I was just curious if that's how Nigeria was, but it sounds like Nigeria is heavily Catholic or heavily Christian.
Heavily Christian.
Yeah.
So Lagos is the capital, and Lagos, I think, has the population of about 20 million. Nigeria as a whole is estimated over a little over 200 million. So you can just imagine it's just 10% of that population is in Lagos, and it's really heavily overpopulated. But if you're talking about the faith or the faith tradition of the country as a whole, I would say it's probably 60% Muslim.
Okay.
Okay, and 40% Christian. That's the estimate I would give it. And then of that 40% Christian, maybe a large percentage would be Catholics.
Okay. When you with the Muslims, they elected a Muslim president right now, correct? Am I remembering right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Has that caused any type of conflict over there that you're aware of? I'm just curious because I don't know as much about Nigeria.
It's an interesting place because we've never had, growing up in Nigeria, we never had issues with Christians and Muslims. We lived harmoniously together on the same street. They go to the mosque, we go to church. On Easter, the Catholics, the Christians fast. On Good Friday, during Ramadan, during their feast, they fast. The kids tease each other and try to feed each other things when they're fasting. What kids do.
Yeah.
It was pretty harmonious until it seemed like in the last 10, 15, 20 years, it seemed like it's when all of a sudden this world extreme movement kind of just started going rampant. So we lived harmoniously together for quite a while. But I think that right now, with the election of a Muslim president, it's not really that big a deal because he's also from the western part. He's from the southwest of Nigeria, which you always have the factions ruling from the north, the south, or the southeast, or the southwest. And he's from the southwest. So large population of that in Lagos. And so it seems like the issues, I would say, politically would not be the fact that he's Muslim. The issues that I think the country might have currently would have to do with other things, not.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could have bad policies and it has nothing to do with your religious affiliation.
Right.
So, or good policies.
Right. Absolutely.
So
yeah, but yeah. So that's how I mean, going back to your original question, that's how I ended up here was going that route. And I started telling you about my father and my mother because my intention was when I got out of school, once I graduated, my intention was to go back home. That was what was expected of me, was to go back home and run the family business. But at the time, the political situation at home wasn't conducive for me to even come back, for anybody to come back to even think about it. We still had the regular coup d'etats, one government overthrows the other and things get frozen and the monetary system is kind of locked up for days or for months. And, so those risks I didn't want to take on at the time. And so I stayed. And really, it wasn't until when I decided I'm going to make my life here in the U.S. That's when my career took off. Because once I made that commitment, I was at Pencorp Financial. I became a sales manager with that company. I started growing with that company. And I opened up an office for that company in Kansas City, Overland Park, Kansas. And I was scheduled to go to Chicago to take over that office. And then I decided I wanted to just hang up my own shingles. So I resigned and opened up my own insurance agency. Ran that for a number of years. Then I got the opportunity to collaborate with my brothers. I have two younger brothers here as well. And so we collaborated and bought some 7-Elevens and Hardee's and I think a mobile gas station. So we did that for a number of years. And I found out that wasn't really my cup of tea.
Now, how did your brothers get over here, if I can ask? I want to go back to that's not your cup of tea, but I was also, you reintroduced that. Did they follow you after they saw you? Did they fall in love with St. Louis, or they just followed their brother and decided it was the next step for them?
Absolutely. But they just followed suit. They had never been to St. Louis. So just like I had never been to St. Louis, I was here and
they knew big brother's there and I'm just going to show up.
We're just going to coming up. So they came up and they went to Fontbonne. That's where they went to Fontbonne University. They played soccer. If they got to play soccer and did very well at Fontbonne University, they were really the two stars of Fontbonne the years that they were there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Something to be a little proud of, and I think I could beat you guys, so I should have been even better.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, you know how the story goes. You could be the older brother and you could do things first and you can be better, but you have to recognize sometimes the talent of those that are coming up behind you, that they're just a different set of skills, So, they're great.
Awesome. And so they made their homes here in St. Louis. They graduated and then they're still here with you.
Absolutely. They're here, family. I have another younger cousin who I went home after 10 years. He followed suit. He came here as well. So I have, 4 Adewunmis here with families.
That's awesome.
We're blessed.
Very much. So it made it easier for your parents to come visit you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Everybody's in one spot. They just got to travel to one area.
Well, I do have a sister in England.
Really?
So there is a sister in England, and there's a beautiful niece that I have in England. So they always had to make a stop there to see all the grandchildren. So
there you go.
Yeah. They make their rounds.
So she lived like in England, or she lived in the outskirts of England?
She lived in London. So she lived in a little place called Harrow. Yeah. Harrow. It's in London. It's on the outskirts, in the suburbs of London.
Yeah. That's kind of what I meant. When I said England, I actually meant London. So I assumed that because that's where most people gravitate to, kind of like you kind of come to St. Louis and then you kind of gradually move towards the suburbs.
Right.
So
Correct. Yeah.
that's awesome.
Anyway, yeah.
So now rewind back to you and your brothers had this, and it wasn't in your cup of tea of running Hardee's and Mobiles and 7-Elevens. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got back out. I got out of the business, and
Did they get out at the same time?
no, they got out shortly after. But I got out of it. They got out shortly after. When I got out, I decided I was going to stay in the financial services arena because I had the insurance agency. So I decided to get into the mortgage business, which is kind of how
We connected, you sure?
you and I connected. So I got into the mortgage business and opened up my own mortgage brokerage, which I ran for a number of years, and all the way till 2008. When the market crashed. And when the market crashed and everybody was trying to figure out, what are we going to do now? That's when I started consulting. Because when I had the insurance agency, most of my clientele was self-employed folks. So I started consulting with the self-employed folks and meeting with them on business growth and how I could help their businesses in different ways, and personnel, people, management, leadership, and business strategy. And that's when it started my passion started bubbling inside of me. Okay. So when I finally got connected, and I think I was about a few years later is when you and I connected, and we came together. After that is when it was a blessing, because I found a place that that would allow me to grow that part of my business. So the mortgage business was there, and I was doing that, and I was doing well in it, but I was able to really focus and grow my speaking, coaching, and training business. And that's when it started really flourishing, because you have that base. And the goal was to get eventually to a point where my income that I was earning from the mortgage, the income I was earning from the coaching, speaking, and training would far surpass the one from the mortgage.
Yeah.
So, and that was the goal. But the ultimate goal, man, Josh, has always been to try to touch as many lives as possible. That's always been my goal. So when we start getting into the coaching, speaking, and training, I just always feel the first imagination is being on a stage of 5,000 people, 4 times a year or something, 20,000 people that you touch. Somehow they get to listen to you and hear words of inspiration, and are able to hear things that they could put in effect that would change the direction of their lives, right? That was a goal. And so, fast forward to where we are today with COVID and how that just kind of disrupted the in-person trainings and meetings and all the things we used to do. And now we're all online, and we're getting tired of being online, etc. And I still enjoy the face-to-face connection as we are doing right now, Me
too. It's much more personable. I've watched you grow. One of the things that really, as I got to know you, one of the areas that I really saw you grow and really understood your passion for it was when you were part of Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So Toastmasters, I just had a conversation this morning about it. A young lady that I coach, who's got a keynote coming up at the end of January, we were talking, and I told her, I said, Toastmasters was a huge impact on me. And I said, not because the name Toastmasters, it was the club. I was very fortunate. I walked out of my house. I looked in the book. I looked for the nearest Toastmasters. There was one in Ellisville, West County Toastmasters, and they met at the library. And I walked in there, and I came into a room of 6, 7, 8 great speakers and great listeners. I'm talking not good, great. So when you walk in a room like that, and everybody says, Hey, look at other clubs. Go check all the clubs out. Make sure that, you find a really good one. And I did. But the one I found here in my home in Ellisville was amazing. I mean, we have folks there that won district championships, in evaluation, in speech, in humor. It was a powerhouse of a club. So I was fortunate. I was able to suck all that information in. I was able to learn. I walked in there knowing that I was a okay speaker, maybe good, but I walked out several years later being an unbelievable listener, which of course helped my speaking. So it had a huge impact in my growth. Like you mentioned, you start off in the area competition because we have those yearly competitions. We start off in the area competition, which is your area club. I won that several times. Then you move to the division. I won that several times. Then you move to district, and the district is where the entire region comes together. And I placed third, I think, twice in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I really, and I learned so much from it.
Well, those are the things that sharpen us, make us better. When you're surrounded by good people who are experts in something and they're willing to critique and help you become an expert, and then you're able to take that and apply it. And obviously doing life coaching seems to me like that's a natural, if you're looking to speak and give information out, to be able to present it in a very clear, distinct way, to be able to listen and hear where the needs of people are. So that way, when you present your next one, you can make those slight adjustments and hit the key things that they're wanting to hear that wants them to come back for the next one.
Right. That's you're right. You're absolutely right. It was a shoe-in. I didn't know that was what I was being prepared for when I was going through Toastmasters and I was learning how to listen. All I wanted to do was become a better speaker. I wanted to become a better speaker, but that organization helped me so much to become a better listener, to the extent that all of a sudden that evolved into my coaching, because primarily everybody sometimes feels like coaching is about telling people what to do. You as a coach can advise someone in aeronautical engineering, can advise somebody in catering, can advise somebody in any industry. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have experience in that industry because it's about the person and it's about what's going on between the ears.
True.
So it's interesting. I just didn't realize it at the time that this was what it was preparing me for, because it becomes so much, not easier, but it becomes just a fit when you're able to sit down and truly listen to people. And as you're listening, you're able to assess what's going on and ask the right questions. And the whole idea is not telling anybody what to do. The whole idea is to ask enough questions to where they come to a logical, clear, and concise strategy and direction in which they want to go. And they should go. Then they own it. If you tell them, just like your kids, you tell them, I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Yeah, well, exactly. That is a great skill. I know you've got 3 great kids. All have done really, really well. And, I imagine you were able to use that in some of that. I know as I grow wiser and a little bit older, a few more gray hairs, that that I'm much better today than ever before of A, listening to my kids, and B, trying to help them come to the right conclusions without having to tell them the right conclusions. So had one of those discussions last night where you want to put your foot down and you want to say no at period, but versus no period, it was, well, no this way, but I'll leave the door open over here. But my hope is through this, you're able to make some assessments along the way and realize that what your mom and I are already seeing, helping create those buffers. I always say that we're kind of like 2 guards in the bowling alley. And when your kids are young, you have to be strong and really feel, because everything they do is going to bounce. I mean, as they're just young, they have no trajectory, period. And but as they get older and older, we kind of deflate and make that the possibility of the gutter just that much easier. But the hope is as the more they're practicing, the more they're making strikes and not having to need those gutter buffers.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm not a bowler really per se, but I always thought that was a great
Great analogy.
for me to kind of explain how when people ask my style of parenting, that's kind of how
Makes sense.
I kind of try to tell people there's until they're out of my house, they're still underneath my rules, but I try to guide them and direct them and take that inflation away. And hopefully if I'm doing my job right there, they get to a point just like it's natural.
When we, I don't know about you, but we didn't get a master parenting book when we decided to become parents, right? We just saw how our parents raised us, and we probably, if we were blessed enough, we saw how maybe some of the effects of how grandparents raised our parents, and we kind of pick some up from there, and we go. And I always tell everybody I don't think there's a perfect parenting style as long as you parent.
Well, I think it's it. I mean, you want to love them, right? But I also think part of it too is always tell us about anything, whether it be parenting or business, whatever. Look around and see those people that you look and you say, I like what's going on, and find out what they're doing successful.
Absolutely.
Okay. You'll find out if it's a real deal or not, first of all. And if it's a real deal, there's probably some things you can learn from it. Just like you learn with Toastmasters.
Right.
A lot of things in my life, whether it be from my business or from my parenting styles, were not me. I certainly learned from my parents and grandparents, but even more so, I would say people in the church, people that I was around, I would see certain things and I'd be like, I like how they do that. Even as a kid, I'd go, well, I wish my parents would do something like that. I see, how they do that. Not necessarily even in a, like, I want more freedom way. I just acknowledged that I liked how, versus being a straight on disciplinarian. One of the things that I learned growing up is I had two really good friends that were both pastors' kids. Okay. One when I was in my younger years, one that came along. It was funny. One moved out to Kansas City, and like a year later, I got another. So, and both of them had a very similar thing, which is they both were so restricted by their parents being disciplinarians that as soon as they got out of their house, they become hellions because they had no freedom. And the minute they were given freedom, they didn't know how to handle it because they'd never been taught to make these wise choices. Thank God they both came back and came back to their moral grounding, but they definitely went through periods of their life where they're probably 10 times more rebellious than the average kid that goes off to college or the military or whatever. So, and definitely hit some low points in both of their lives that, most of my other friends that I had did not hit. And I think a lot of it had to do with just too much. On the other hand, I also saw had some other friends that their parents were way, way loose, let them do anything. And they never even made it through college, man. Like they didn't have no discipline whatsoever because none was ever applied to them. So it seems, to me, I was like looking at that, even as a young college kid, young man, starting to go, I don't want to be all the way here, but I also don't want to be all the way here. So how do I find that?
Right.
Who are the people that I'm watching that I really see success? And you see that each of their kids are going on, they're doing well, being successful in life, being good citizens, morally good, making good decisions, and started asking, what are they doing different?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. When I look at parenting, Josh, I look at it and I think, you're right. There are those that were really strict. And when they get the freedom, they go crazy. But I wonder, what did our parents do? When I say our parents, the parents of immigrants like myself, who were sent 6,000 miles away, 9,000 miles away to go to school. I was under their roof. I was sent away to boarding school. I had freedom in boarding school. But I definitely, when I came here to St. Louis, I definitely had a lot of freedom. And I was 19. And I always think back as what type of parenting did I have? Was I given to allow me to have that invisible security blanket that I talked about in my speech online? Is You know, you talk about those buffers, the bowling buffers. I call it an invisible security blanket. What did they do that created that invisible security blanket that allowed that guide for me not to go nuts? Don't get me wrong. We're all human.
Yeah, we all make some mistakes, right? But they weren't life-changing and altering.
Absolutely. You know, I was able to have the sense of awareness to know, I'm not going to do that. I am not going to do that. I'll do this, but I'm not doing that. What did they do that created that invisible security blanket? And that's what I had to go back as I had my first child. That's what I had to go back and honestly recreate. And I'll tell you, the only one of the main things that I found that created, that helped embody that invisible security blanket was a faith. It was a faith. So, I always think back as to what can I do? All of a sudden, I'm driving home. I got this little baby in the back. I'm looking in the rearview mirror and looking in front, looking in the rearview mirror and looking in front. And I got my wife beside me. And it's just like the sun is bright. The sky is blue. And I just felt like it was a new world that was created.
I believe that. I believe it. I would agree with you on that. I mean, always young men in the church when you're getting ready to have their first kids, I said your life is the first one. I said they're all going to rock your world, but the first one's going to rock it the most because it's something that's going to alter the rest of your life. I said when you get married, it alters your life because every decision now includes somebody else.
Absolutely.
But now it's going to be altered in another way. And what I have found, I mean, this is statistically what you're saying kind of makes sense because you find a lot of people leave the church in their when they go off to college, and often they return to church when they have their first kid. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a reason for that because it makes them reflect and think and realize that mom and dad weren't so crazy.
Right.
Yeah, there was having some of those boundaries were good things. Mm-hmm. And also, they start to realize that in creation of life, there's also death, and now you've got to start talking about that other part of life, and that makes you then have to come to a conclusion if do you have a faith or do you not have a faith?
Right.
Do you explore and find out what faith is?
Right.
So
right.
And so you find a lot of people come back to the church or try different things at that point in life. And so that makes sense that you would say that. I mean, that statistically would fall right in line with a lot of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think good reason for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. So we got through all that. Now you're business coaching. I know I don't want to take forever about it because what people can do, if they really want to know the truth, they can hire you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and have you come in and work with their companies. But I know that you work with people one-on-one.
Yes.
Which I believe that's what you did with the mayor of St. Louis, right? That was on a one-on-one situation?
Absolutely, yes. So every year, I think we used to have 2 events a year with the TEDx, the local TEDx. And so about 8-9 years ago, I got involved with that local organization. And I wanted to give a TED Talk is the reason I got involved. I wanted to give a TED Talk. I'm a TED junkie. I watch all these TED Talks on Netflix and YouTube, and I could sit all day and just watch. I just love it. And so I decided, you know what? I get a pretty interesting life. I would love to give a TED Talk. So I looked for the local organization and went down there and started kind of poking around. And a young lady there kind of snagged me and said, you know what? We'd love if you'd be a coach, a facilitator. I said, well, what does that entail? I mean, do you have a guide that you go by? Because a speaker can train another speaker how to speak sometimes. But if now you're giving a TED Talk, that's a completely different type of an audience and speech. And so they said, yeah, we have guides and stuff we go through. So that's what I went through. I went through the routine and I kept trying to figure out how can I give my own talk? And I came to realize that I really didn't have what they were looking for to give a TED Talk. The other thing I realized is the TED that I wanted to give to talk on was the Big TED. The Big TED takes place, costs millions of dollars, and I think it's I don't know if it's Montreal, and they have, I think, several of them that take place. They're massive, and those are the ones that have the big speakers. They come and they get the big speakers from and to. So that was what I thought this was. So when I realized that it was a smaller, much smaller version of it, I sort of lost some interest. But what I later found out is that talks that occur on that local level that go viral, and so get as much exposure as Big TED does. And so anyway,
isn't it great that we're in a time that can happen?
Absolutely.
I love it. That's how this podcast is. We've been rocking for not even a year, 28,000 subscribers just on YouTube. You know, you think about that and you're going, you know, and there's people on Spotify and iTunes and Apple and Google and all these different platforms that are out there. And you just go, you go back 10 years ago, wouldn't have had this opportunity to be doing this type of thing.
Right.
So
it's great. I mean, it's a great idea, you know. Just to think this used to be my office.
Yeah, you used to come back here and set up and work, eh? Well, that's right. Now it's turned into a great podcast area, and we're able to have some amazing guests, including yourself today. So that's
it's great. This is great. Thanks for having me. This is really good.
Well, thank you for coming. So if people want to reach out to you, they want to get business coaching, life coaching. You do company coaching.
Absolutely. I work with organizations. Josh, my true passion, as you know, is I love to help people. Okay. I believe that culture in organizations starts from the top and goes all the way down. So I've created a niche. I found a niche for myself with CEOs and the executive teams. But I also know within those organizations, we have been able to identify high-performing executives, high-performing individuals all the way down, which we're able to identify and help lift up, give some leadership skills and bring them up. So I love that aspect of seeing my work, seeing my work come to fruition. My other passion, obviously, is speaking and coaching, and I'm doing a lot of that coaching speakers one-on-one. I just finished a 2-day certification workshop last week. I believe it was Tuesday and Wednesday last week, where a young lady flew in from Indianapolis. There was supposed to be another gentleman, business owners that was supposed to come in from Chicago, but he couldn't make it. So we're scheduling the next workshop for I believe, March 20th and 21st, but I'll get the dates out. Once we finalize it, but the next
and they can get those on your website, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. And we'll put that in the links. So for people listening,
absolutely,
well, they'll be able to check that out in the show notes. You'll be able to click right over and go to his website, know how to book him, how to get to one of those events that are on his website, and do that. Right. Well, any parting words? Anything that people should know before we hang this up? You do corporate, you do the one-on-one, you do this public speaking. Anything else they should know about? I'm sure there's a lot more. We'll get you back up for another episode. But I mean, as far as, you know, if somebody's listening and they're like identifying, going, yes, I need to get some life coaching. I need to get, you know, I would love to have that guy come in and help people in our office make it to the next level, or help us identify other people in our organization that could be coming up. Right. That would be all good stuff. And you're not limited by travel or anything like that. I already know that you travel all over the place, but I also know that with the internet and all, you can do it via the internet and all that good stuff too. So there's no restraints, and because we got a lot of people who listen in from all over this country. So yeah. All right. Well, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I was in Chicago, I was in Houston, I was in Vegas. I did a little stint in London a couple of years back. I do workshops when I was as you know, during COVID, I was stuck in Nigeria when I went back. And so I did some workshops in Nigeria with primarily business owners. So yeah, I'm not limited with distance, but yeah, I
I think the workshop I did last week when I talk about my passion is people, every entrepreneur, every business owner, I always say needs to have that signature speech in their pocket. Not an elevator speech, because I have a good friend locally here that is a master at elevator speeches. And I say a signature speech, one that you get on and you're able to talk about 10 to 15 minutes about who you are, what you do, and how you do what you do. And then there's a takeaway. What you expect people to walk away with. And so for me, everything I do, I base it on that introduction, that opening, that body, and the close. And for me, my close here today is, first of all, always good to be in your company. Thanks for having me. And anybody that's looking, okay, I know that my passion in life is to help people grow. And my challenge to anybody listening today is, who in your circle can you lift up and help grow? And whoever you can, do it. We all have the capability. Do it.
I love it.
So,
well, thanks for stopping by. We'll make sure all of his information is in the links below. Don't forget to support those that support us, like Resource One and Andy McCallum and his team at 636-458-1798. We got Chris and CS Design, who did the intro, outro, manages our website, and the gear that you can buy if you want to get some triple play gear. We got hats, mugs, all sorts of goodies out there. Make sure you're buying that. If it's Christmas time and you need a last minute gift, reach out there. If you're local, you want to sign ball and all, I think I got a few still here, so you can always swing by the office. We're glad to help you out with that. You can reach Chris and his team at 573-436-3717. And lastly, Jeff Earhart with State Farm Insurance. We're thankful for Jeff and his team, and you can reach them for any of your insurance needs at 314-821-JEFF. So 314-821-5333. Or just remember Jeff. That said, we'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks again for being here.
all righty. Thank you.
All righty.
You're safe.